Hello, everyone. So we are headed into a new section, and this section is designed for pre-calc students only, pre-calc students next year. And there are two assignments here. And remember that as we finish a section, I pull it down to the bottom of this document. So you see it at the bottom here. The last section that we did with circular trig, angle measure, and arc length is at the bottom. So you'll need some of this to refer to for sure. The circular trig ratio computations for special right triangles, that's a lot there. And the assignment 1 and the notes are going to be the same thing. So I'm going to be working into that assignment to do the notes. It's kind of a little mini project for next year, and you can save this. I'll put my overhead up here. But these are the actually two things. You'll have both of these in the assignment document and then this trig ratio computations page of notes. Recall, or I shouldn't say recall, you're going to have to learn now the reciprocal identities. So the cosecant is the reciprocal of sine, the secant is the reciprocal of cosine, and the cotangent is the reciprocal of tangent. Also, the tangent and cotangent can be expressed as sine over cosine and cosine over sine. And this, combined with the special right triangle sides, produces these special computations. You know, so when we go to do sometimes the tangent calculation, which sine over cosine happens, these top two come about, so on and so forth. When we do the reciprocals, these 1/over ratios computations come about. So I'm going to be referring to these often in doing this assignment. And I'm just going to warn you a little bit, this assignment is a little bit of tedium, but that's the pre-calc level. You've got work to do in understanding all of this. This chart is like the ultimate page of notes now. I'm going to do the second and fourth quadrant for the special right triangles, so you can fill those in, and then you'll have the first and the third to do. And the result just gets put on this chart from all of these pages. And this is very labor intensive, and it's very knowledge intensive as we go about it. So I am going to, since I'm doing the second and fourth quadrant, I'm going to start on numbers. That would not be the second quadrant. I'm going to start on number 4. Okay, so you might want to pull your work here to number 4. And this just kind of ends up being the same thing over and over. You're going to start seeing some patterns, although it's not the exact same thing over and over. You see the patterns and how things work. So you see this table here of the special right triangle solutions. And as we become more familiar, I am going to go a little faster to get through the video, but spend a little bit of time on this first right triangle. So you see here, we're in the second quadrant at the given angle of 2 pi over 3. So remember, the given angle is swept out from 0 in a counterclockwise fashion over to this coordinate. Now remember, that coordinate is the x and y value of this angle. So if you did sine of 120 in degree mode, people, listen, you're calculating with degrees, you're in degree mode. In cosine of 120, that's the x and y value. Okay, and you can also see, as I told you in previous videos, that the sides of this are going to be square root of 3 over 2 and 1/2. And the shorter side is 1/2. So these sides are placed in here, and this becomes the coordinate negative 1/2 square root of 3 over 2. And so what you need to know is, again, that's the x and y value on the sine and cosine are the x and y value. And so all this gets filled in, and yes, it is labor intensive. I will not lie to you there. And now the reference angle is 60 degrees. So what is that now? That's a little bit of a new thing. So that's the angle right there that you would actually do the physical ratios with. Now I didn't put -1/2 here because we're really talking about a side length. You could, if you wanted to make sense of it completely in doing the ratios, you can put a negative there. I just choose not to. And in my answers, I choose not to because we're talking about a length. But to make the ratios make sense, if you wanted to do that, you go right ahead. Okay, so there's that little bit. Remember that each little click on the circle is 15 degrees. So as you wind around, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So 8 times 15, 120 degrees. Don't forget that either. So what about the rest of these? How do we calculate the tangent here? Well, look on this. This is going to give you good information. We need to do the sine over the cosine, which is dividing these two. Well, this is going to happen over and over and over. And so I made a page of these computations, again, appropriately putting in the negative and realizing that as you wind around, negatives come and go, but these ratios tend to be the same for these different locations. So when you divide these two, just to explain this one time, you take the reciprocal of the denominator and multiply by the numerator. So square root of 3 over 2 times 2 over 1. And that ends up, when you cancel the 2's, being the square root of 3. Why do you do that? Because you're trying to make the denominator equal to 1. So that's really what's going on. And then it creates a 1 in the denominator. And so you're really just doing the numerator calculation. That's why that rule exists. Anyway, I just want you to refer to that the square root of 3 over 2 divided by 1/2 is the square root of 3. There's also the decimal version of that, which I didn't put down, but you can put in there. So this, with the negative appropriately placed, is the negative square root of 3. I'll pause for a second to get some of my answer keys straightened up. And so you're just going to continue down the way here and continue with doing the ratio. So the cotangent is the reciprocal of tangent. Again, you're referring to this. What's that computation? Well, 1 over negative square root of 3. Well, here's that work. And so what that work involves is what's called rationalizing the denominator. Not very exciting, but it's kind of like reducing a fraction. So you multiply top and bottom by the square root value that appears in the denominator to remove the square root from the denominator. And you see a few of those calculations there. You see it up here. Okay, so you see it actually in several places throughout this. So I'm just going to refer to that, appropriately placing the negative again. Okay, negative square root of 3 over 3. The secant ratio is the reciprocal of cosine, so you can just kind of go like this. So the secant reciprocal of -1/2, I hope you would know that that's -2. And then the reciprocal of the square root of 3 over 2. Where is that in here? That's right here. So again, that involves inverting the denominator and multiplying by the numerator. Why is that true? Because you're trying to create a 1 in the denominator and you're multiplying. To do that, you have to treat the numerator and denominator the same. So that's why that rule works. And so that gives you 2 over the square root of 3, and then you have to rationalize the denominator. That means remove all square roots from the denominator by multiplying the top and bottom of the fraction by that square root value, and then reduce the fraction. So this is, all of these you should circle so that you know to look up, because I'm going to start moving quicker in this video. All of these that you just know to look up when it's time to do that computation. And highlight this table so that you know that you're referring back to that over and over. So cosecant should be 2 times the square root of 3 over 3. These notes here are good to look at, to read. And so 4 of the 6 must be negative when you're in the second, third, or fourth quadrant. And when the triangle disappears, the given angle lands on one of the quadrant boundaries. That's not going to be in this assignment, but it will be on the table that you're filling out. It's included. I included that. I did that for you. So what are you going to do? You're going to take this table now, and you're going to go to the appropriate column here, which this is this column, because I'm starting in the second quadrant. And notice how I blackened out angle measures that we don't talk about at those scale marks. You might in pre-calc a little bit, but then you're just going to put the ratio down so that you can refer to this just straight down the way. Copy it right from your assignment. You can refer to this when you are in pre-calc. We'll talk with Mrs. Beersbach and see at least maybe on some of your homework letting you do this. And then if she doesn't let you use it on a quiz, you'll have to memorize some decimals and the ratios, and then use your calculator to be familiar with them. So you just literally transfer that over in that column. And those are the 6 ratios, and over here, sine, cosine, tangent. But I think you need, this assignment will be good to become familiar with this. So I have 5 more to do. They're just going to get transferred in here. That's all that's going on. I'm probably not going to pull this chart back out again because I want to save a little time in the video. It's going to look like this when you're done with your notes. You'll see this. And then you'll have the other 2 to do. Okay, so I will be moving forward and moving a little bit faster now. So that takes us to problem 5. And now we're at a 45-degree angle mark. And so that's right here. That'll be 45 degrees. That's our reference angle. And now I know I'm looking at the square root of 2 over 2 values in that. I'm going to pause again, but I think I'll be good now. So we are at the 41 special mark on 45, 45, 90, right triangle. And so this given angle is all the way around here to 135 degrees, or 3 pi over 4. And remember, again, every click is 15 degrees, or a pi over 12. Okay, so these sides are the square root of 2 over 2. We have established that. So, and the coordinate will be negative square root of 2 over 2, square root of 2 over 2. This is stuff that we've worked on before. And so you're going to fill this in. Right here. Pretty simple to do. And now we're going to do the 6 ratios. And I want you to see if you can start remembering some of these. It's going to take practice, and that's why we're doing this. So remember, the sign is the y value on the unit circle. Don't write these backwards. And the cosine is the x. Some people were mixing that up as we did the assignment. So the tangent is sine over cosine. Well, when we divide these, that's 1. Actually, negative 1. The cotangent is the reciprocal of tangent, which is negative 1. Secant is the reciprocal of cosine. Well, we haven't talked about that one yet, so we need to look up what is the reciprocal of the square root of 2 over 2. It's 1 divided by the square root of 2 over 2. Again, here's the work. Take the reciprocal of the bottom, multiply by the top. Why do you do that? Because you're trying to create a 1 on the bottom. I know I've said this a lot because I want to try to explain everything. Okay, and then, so that's 2 over the square root of 2. Then you multiply top and bottom by the radical that's on the bottom, and to remove the radical from the bottom. And you get 2 times the square root of 2 over 2. The 2's cancel out and you get square root of 2. Now, I'm going to slowly explain each one of these, but from now on, I'm just going to refer so I can go a little bit faster. So this is negative square root of 2. This one will be the square root of 2 because cosecant is the reciprocal of sine. So there are your 6. Again, you're going to come to this right here, and in this column, those are going to get recorded. And I'm not going to do that to save time, but as I go with this, you are going to record those values in there, and you can check them out with the answer key. So that is number 5. Now the last triangle in the second quadrant is at 150. So this reference angle will be 30 degrees. And these sides will be the square root of 3 over 2 and 1/2, making this negative square root of 3 over 2 and 1/2. So the longer side is the square root of 3 over 2 value. Now, let's say you don't have all these and you're just trying to fly and pre-calc next year. Well, all right, so there's the angle, 5 pi over 6. And so what you would do is, make sure you're in radians if you're going to use 5 pi over 6, is you would start learning the decimal equivalents. So sine of 5 pi over 6, 1/2. And then cosine of 5 pi over 6. Start learning the decimal equivalents. So negative square root of 3 over 2. And of course, the other ones, the square root of 2 over 2, 0.7071. Start learning some of these, and then you can start doing this without these pages. And so you would to do tangents. Okay, you would just do tangent. But what is negative 0.5774? Now that's one I haven't written down. Okay, what exactly is that? And that happens to be the square root of 3. So learning these at on your calculator and as decimal equivalents, I think is very important also. Okay, so square root of 2 over 2. Oh, whoops. I had a flashback there. So this is 1/2. Sorry about that. And square root of 3 over 2. And so this will be negative square root of 3 over 2, 1/2 for the coordinate on the circle. And remember that the y is the sine, so don't mess that up when you're recording it over. This goes backwards right there for the sine and cosine. And then tangent is sine over cosine. So we're looking up 1/2 divided by the square root of 3 over 2, which I'm sorry, I misspoke. Square root of 3 over 3 is this value. So it's good to learn, maybe write them down, 0.5774. That might be a good thing to do so that you have all of these. I'm not going to do that in this video, but you can do it on your own, just so you can recognize, what are all of these, along with the square root of 3 over 2 alone and the square root of 2 over 2 alone, which I did in a previous one. So write those down so that you can become familiar with them. And when you move on to pre-calc, if you don't have this, you know how to plot. So we looked that up. Square root of 3 over 3, but it is negative because it's sine over cosine. So we're dividing those. That's the result that happens. And now we want the reciprocal for cotangent. So what is the reciprocal? Right here's that calculation. All the same idea as I've shown you about rationalizing the denominator, and that gives you the square root of 3. So it is about memorizing these values. So 1.732, 0. And so you would do 1 divided by tangent. I mean, if again you're trying to do this in a pre-calc setting, tangent of 5 pi over 6. And you would recognize, okay, that's the square root of 3. Again, memorizing, putting some of these values into knowledge, into your memory, I guess, is a good thing to do. And certainly there's some other ones in there. Cotangent, so that's the reciprocal of this again, which brings us right back there. So negative square root of 3 that I just mentioned, I guess. And so secant, we're going to take the reciprocal of negative square root of 3 over 2. And that's this guy here. So recognizing that as a decimal. So there's a lot to this when you get into the pre-calc level. So that's 1.1547. And we might as well do the square root of 3 and the square root of 2 just to fill this page out. I guess we did the square root of 3 down there. 0.7320. And this is 0.5774. Just to be thorough here, so if you wanted to calculator this, you could. 1.4142. It's always good to go to 4 places. I mean, if you literally wanted to calculate this and then move it backwards into the exact radical form, you could do that. And that's some of my advice on this. So reciprocal here, negative 2 times the square root of 3 over 3. And then cosecant is the reciprocal of sine, which I would hope you would know that is 2. Okay, and that is the second quadrant. Again, make sure you don't make these mistakes. Square root of 3 over 2 and that. Now we're going to skip to the fourth quadrant, just so you have some to do. Again, this is your assignment and your notes, so I'm on number 10 now. And all the same here as we go. So that reference angle is 60 degrees. The horizontal leg is 1/2, and this is square root of 3 over 2. Now you got to think like a coordinate, so 1/2 negative square root of 3 over 2. This is the vertical leg, square root of 3 over 2, and coordinate on the circle. So this starts becoming a little bit repetitive, as you can see. And I will slowly start to speed up on this. So again, we want to take these over, make sure you get the y value in the right place here. Y value is the sine, x value is the cosine. And then start doing your divisions out. So as you look at those, and I encourage you to have a variety of approaches here. So do the tangent of 5 pi over 3 and see if you can say, that's the square root of 3, negative square root of 3. See if you can start recognizing some of those, committing some of these to memory. Don't forget that the square root of 3 over 2 is 0.8660. The square root of 2 over 2 is 0.7071. So you might want to jot those down here. And once you have that, then you become free of my templates. As long as you know this is key, the stuff I have highlighted, that's critical. Then you can become free of the template. And again, you're going to record those in this table, which that would be right here, the first column there, so on and so forth. Remember, 4 of the 6 ratios are negative. That's important. Problem 11. So we're at a 45-degree mark now. Again, and you see how this just becomes very repetitive. So both legs will be this, and we are at a point, in the fourth quadrant, I meant to say, it's the x is positive, the y is negative. So that's something also to know when you're in these quadrants, the plus and minus signs, getting those correct. So the cosine is positive square root of 2 over 2, the x value. Make sure you double check that in getting them transferred there, that you don't mess up. Okay, so tangent, you divide them. Well, that's -1. That's pretty easy, sine over cosine. And then the reciprocal of -1 is -1. And now, again, the reciprocals of these are going to give you the square root of 2 and the negative square root of 2. So how do you do a reciprocal? So if you were doing secant, your calculation on your calculator would be 1 over cosine. And then you got to put the angle in 7 pi over 4. I'm in radians mode, so I have to use the radians. That's 1.414, and that's the square root of 2. So committing some of these to memory for next year is going to be your best plan of attack in doing this. So number 12 will be our last one, and then I'll end and let you work on this. Okay, so again, there's your reference angle. Don't forget that. That's 30 degrees. And it looks like our horizontal leg is the longer one here. So that gets the square root of 3 over 2. And so again, transfer this correctly. Now tangent, you divide these. And that's going to give you negative square root of 3 over 3. Again, use your calculator. Tangent of 11 pi over 6 gives you negative 0.5774. What is that? The square root of 3 over 3. Cotangent is the reciprocal. Okay, and that's going to give you 1.7320, square root of 3. And then secant and cosecant are the other two reciprocals. So again, committing to memory these decimal versions. I think this is a key page of notes that you should save. I mean, if you want to, like, how can I function in pre-calc with this next year? Save this key page of notes. Save your, this guy here that you should be filling in this video. These are the two things, circular trig, that you should save. And there's some other things in graphing that you might want to also, but you'll have this video just to look at also. So finish these two out and the other 6 problems in this note/assignment.